Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Akimale in Abuja. Let's tell you that the number of injured persons from the last Sunday's accident, bomb accident in Tudun Biri village in Igabi local government area of Kaduna State has now risen to 87. This was disclosed to Channels Television by the Deputy Chief Medical Director of the Barao Diko Teaching Hospital, Dr. Shoaibu Musa. He says that 11 victims, mostly children between the ages of 9 months to 5 years, were brought into the hospital on Wednesday and are being attended to by the hospital. Among the patients, he explains, children whose parents were killed in the military airstrike and were being examined to ascertain their state of health. All right, and we will delve into some matter of state, very, very crucial. For those of you who are perhaps asking questions about some items in the budget, the reasons why the federal government is budgeting in the way and manner it is, why it's appropriating money in some areas more than the others, and the reasons why they are putting money in some areas. Tonight we'll be getting explanation. One of those persons who was primarily involved or even responsible is on his shoulder that this budget was being produced. He's going to be talking to us on the program tonight. And then afterwards, after that conversation, we go to Kano State and the NNPP. What exactly is going on? There are a lot of people who believe that NNPP is Kwankwanso. Kwankwanso is NNPP. But what is happening? There are those who are in the party saying it's not the true owner of the party. In fact, they've bestowed some persons who are close to Kwankwanso. What exactly is going on? The Kano governorship tussle is also on one hand, and all of what has happened, the protests and agitations. We'll delve into that also right here on the program. So stick around with me, because first and foremost, we'll serve you with your political roundup stories.
The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, is supporting the use of non-kinetic approach to tackling the security situation in the southeast region. He gave the nod when he received a delegation under the auspices of Peace in Southeast project, led by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, at the presidential villa in Abuja. The Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has sworn in Mr. Biodun Ogunyele and Engineer Olufemi Daramola as members of the State Executive Council. Ogunleye was sworn in as Commissioner for Energy and Mineral Resources, while Daramola was appointed Special Advisor to the Governor on Infrastructure. Speaking during the swearing-in ceremony held at the Exco Chamber of the Lagos House, Ikeja, Governor Sanwo-Olu urged the newly appointed cabinet members to hit the ground running by taking their responsibilities to an enviable height for them to meet the yearnings and expectations of Lagos residents. The Minister of Interior, Mr. Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, is hoping to partner with the Nigeria Security Print and Minting PLC on the domestication of specific operations within the Ministry of Interior. The minister stated this during the facility tour of the company's head office in Abuja. Mr. Tunji-Ojo explains that he would want to partner with the nation's security printing company if the needed capacity and facilities are up to speed. He says all security documents such as driver's license, voter cards, national passports, certificates and examination documents should be produced by the company because of the security features in the documents. The Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation has flagged off the distribution of grants to over 3,000 vulnerable groups in Kogi State. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Betta Edu, explained that the 20,000 Naira cash grant is meant to ameliorate poverty and cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal among the vulnerable groups in Nigeria. And a coalition of concerned political parties are calling on the federal government to review its policies and programs in order to ameliorate the sufferings of Nigerian masses. Addressing a joint news conference in Abuja, spokesperson of the coalition of concerned political parties and the national chairman of the Social Democratic Party, Mr. Shehu Gabam, says Nigerians are groaning as a result of some of the programs and policies of the federal government. The group, made up of representatives of the PDP, ADC, NNPP, YPP, and the SDP, are also asking judicial officers to be alive to the responsibilities by defending the nation's democracy through adjudications that are in line with the Constitution.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. So since President Bola Tinubu last week submitted before the joint session of the National Assembly the 2024 budget, which he says is a budget of renewed hope, the National Assembly says they will expedite action in scrutinizing the budget and trying to pass it before the end of the year so it can meet the January 1st fiscal year, so that the budget year will begin on the 1st of January. But there's been a lot of back and forth in the budget defense. Yesterday, of course, we understand that the House of Representatives Committee on Public Petition fumed over the failure of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Yemi Cardoso, and some others who did not show up. Today, however, we saw the members of Parliament who are very upset that the chairman of INEC did not show up. Let me allow you to listen to their grievance and how that played out today.
Rather unfortunate that the management of INEC is not yet here, and this is not a good way to start a new administration, not with the marching order given that by Mr. President, that he wants the budget speedily treated, and they've not been able to communicate, and that makes it even worse.
May I please leave my indulgence that from the chair, review this medium to give INEC a definite date on when they should appear. And a warning.
We don't want to give another date in public now, and now find out that that day won't be visible. So let's go deliberate and look for another visible date.
That was earlier today, yesterday. In fact, apart from the anger which the lawmakers showed about Mr. Yemi Cardoso and several others who did not show up, he also ordered the arrest following a motion led by Honorable Fred Agbedi, the member of the House of Representatives from PDP in Bayelsa State, among that 17 about 17 orders should be arrested. They include the CBN governor, the accountant general, heads of National Petroleum Investment Management Services, the Ethiopia Eastern Exploration and Production Company Limited, the West African Exploration and Production, and several others, because of their inability to show up and the manner in which they've treated the budget defense. But let's get a sense of what these all means. I know a lot of Nigerians are already reacting to the manner in which the budget process have gone and some of the items. We're getting some explanation tonight on that. The Director General of the Budget Office, Mr. Ben Akabueze, joins us now on the program. Thank you so much, Mr. Akabueze, for your time tonight.
Thank you, Sean. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. When one wonders that, look, when the head of the executive appeared before the National Assembly, and his prayer predominantly was, he was pleading with the National Assembly that he wanted the budget to be passed on time. And some of the lawmakers have said they will make sure that the budget is passed speedily. But look at what is coming out of the National Assembly, to the point that they are ordering a warrant of arrest on key officials in the executive. What is going on?
Well, Sean, I cannot speak for those heads of agencies, but certainly I'm sure that, and I do hope that they have good explanation. Otherwise, I think simply not appropriate that they didn't show up.
But this is not the first time this kind of thing is happening, Mr. Akabueze, where National Assembly members will say, you are supposed to show up and you're not showing up. I mean, is it some kind of disrespect to the lawmakers, or what exactly? Or are they not privy to the calendar, or the schedule, or not? The proper communication is not being passed on to them, or what could be going on exactly?
Sure, I'm afraid I can't speak to that because I'm not involved in that process. The invitations go from them directly, from the National Assembly to them directly, so I can't speak as to whether or not they actually received the invitations. I can't speak for why they didn't honor the invitations because we're not involved in that process.
You know, the reason why I'm asking this is that you as a person, and I'm not trying to personalize the budget is your baby. It's under your office that this budget emanates. And you perhaps also pass it on to the president because he trusted your judgment in what is being prepared, because we're going to be analyzing the budget in details later on. But, I mean, doesn't this frustrate your own effort? Because if you prepared something and something, a document or this kind of bill emanates from your office and this is happening, doesn't this frustrate your effort? And that's the reason why I'm asking.
Well, Sheung, obviously, it's our desire, you know, especially considering all of the effort put into preparing the budget, it's our desire that the budget be passed timeously so that implementation can also be, you know, begin in earnest and, you know, next year. So clearly anything that impedes that process is concerning to us. But all I'm saying is I'm not in a position to provide the answers that you seek as to why the persons involved did not honor the invitation.
Okay, so let's go on and find out from you, what are the feelers that you are getting? The president's wish is that the budget is passed on time before the end of the year. And I know that just when the president dropped the budget, that was not, your job was not over. You are having communication with the National Assembly. Is it possible, of course, because we know a past president, at least in the last few years, they've submitted the budget around October, which gave the members of the National Assembly about 2 months or thereabout to be able to scrutinize the budget. For these set of lawmakers, we have less than 3 weeks or thereabout to scrutinize the budget. What are you hearing from them in terms of commitment?
Well, Sheung, I think to put things in context, the last time you had a transition from one president to another president was in 2015. And in 2015, the president then submitted the budget to the National Assembly even later than this president has. The truth is that in a transition year, it does take a little longer to, you know, to craft the budget because the new administration wants to basically align the budget with its own agenda. The budget is not just a mere statement of estimates of revenues and expenditures, but the budget is an encapsulation of the government's policies, priorities, and agenda, you know, for its own term of office, and so that's why it does take. So it's not a fair comparison to compare a transition year with other years.
Let me ask you, and I'd like you to clarify a few controversies here and there. Did the president submit an empty box before the National Assembly on that day?
That's a ridiculous, statement. I mean, an empty box. But in any case, I think the best place to get the answer from would be the leadership of the National Assembly, to whom those boxes were submitted.
All right. So I'm asking the question because those are the feelers coming from that quarters. That that box actually did not contain, and I'm sure you're not hearing this for the first time, that the boxes or the box laid before the National, in front, that you see right there on your screen, were empty boxes. I mean, but that's why I'm asking for you to clarify, and those who are Nigerians who are already asking the question, or the kind of sincerity that the leaders of Nigerians are showing, and that's why I want you to clarify whether or not, what exactly are the facts.
Sure, my office has a responsibility for putting together documents that go into the box. And we did put documents in the box. So, you
cannot say whether or not it's empty or whether or not it's filled with any document.
So, I think that it's, I believe that the National Assembly leadership has issued a statement on that. So, but if you prefer to believe what one member is saying over and above what the leadership says, then it's not my place to I can't say anything more about that.
That's why I'm asking. I have the privilege of speaking with you, and that's why I want Nigerians, my viewers tonight, to be able to know the facts in the matter. And now that you're here, you can authoritatively tell us what the fact is against what it's not. But let me ask you, I mean...
Listen, when you asked me to discuss the budget, I thought we were going to speak about the budget, talk about what's important to Nigerians, the budget. It's not about, you know, I mean, I'm not here to discuss rumors about whether it's an empty box, why people were invited or whether they showed up or not. I thought I was here to provide, you know, the tangible explanations about the provisions of the budget that Nigerians, the majority of Nigerians seek and are interested in.
Yeah, of course we will do that. You know, when they say spirit and letters, usually it's about the meat and everything around it. So sometimes there are things, there is the icing on the cake and the cake itself. Sometimes things that are around the cake sometimes cause for discussion. But let me get straight into the meat of the matter. One of it is the issue of the manner and the style of the budget, in which you and I know I've had this conversation with you in the past. What style of budget process was adopted in this very one? This is a new government. Was it zero budgeting process, or what exactly was used in drafting this?
The current administration hasn't changed the process it inherited. Remember that in a transition year, you have the first 5 months. You know, people often think that the budget process begins when the budget is laid before the National Assembly. The budget process starts much earlier. The budget process starts in March. And so by the time the administration was sworn in, the budget process was well, you know, afoot. And so this administration hasn't changed the process. It's still zero-based, yes.
Let me get your view on the assumptions. And the president, in his speech, was very confident about the growth rate, which is perhaps more ambitious than what the IMF or some other international bodies are projected. What gives that confidence that we could achieve that level, knowing full well this is the first budget of this administration? They've actually not been able to test the waters to know whether or not on how some of these indices for a full budget cycle or full budget year, to know how the year could run, a full 12 calendar months could run. But I just wanted to know what was running through the minds of those who prepared the budget, the estimation and the assumption of the growth rate.
The growth rate assumption in this budget doesn't even yet reflect the ambitions of the new administration. As you heard, the new administration wants, you know, to double the GDP, before the turn of this decade. The new administration has indicated that its goal is to achieve double-digit growth by the end of its first term. But this budget is still anchored to the medium-term National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. So the 3.76% growth is what we have in the medium-term development plan. This administration has initiated a process to review that plan, okay, to be able to align it with its own, higher growth objectives.
Interesting. So if IMF, for example, did a downgrade of their expectation of the Nigerian economy, and they felt that we are not able to grow at the rate in which we assumed as a country, what do you think? Where does this come from? How do we balance this up?
In the last 4 years, IMF has got it wrong. about our projections. Our actual growth has always beaten their projections. So I don't know why you think their projections represent the holy grail on economic growth. The IMF is projecting growth across 200 countries in the world, all over the world. They can't get it, right better than the people who have direct responsibility for managing those individual economies.
Let's look at also revenue generation. There are those who have said that is super ambitious. Speak to us about that.
Well, again, a lot of people just do knee-jerk commentary and don't really sit down and study the budget. As of September this year, and as was stated clearly in the minister's breakdown of the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, his presentation on the breakdown of the budget. As of September this year, in terms of our revenue performance, we had 105% of the pro rata budget projection. The full year budget projection for revenue.
Oh dear. I think there's some kind of a freeze and glitch with the connection with Mr. Akabueze, who's explaining to us some of the assumptions and the expectations of the 2024 budget, as which will, for the first time, President Bola Tinubu will take charge of the destiny of the economy and a budget that in which he is able to christen in the manner in which he wants the nation to go within the next 1 year. And of course, he christened it the budget of renewed hope. And how much of a hope that will bring is a big question. And that's why we're dissecting aspects of this budget. I'm not sure. Mr. Akabueze is back with us. Mr. Akabueze, are you back with us?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, great. So go ahead. Yeah, for a moment we lost you there.
Yeah. So I was explaining that our revenue performance as of September is already running ahead of the budget, just 8.65 trillion, as against a pro rata budget of 8.28 trillion. So for this year, 2023, we will make the budget projection. But the way to look at it, okay, remember the budget, the revenue projection was for a full year, January to December. And it was on the assumption that by June, the petrol subsidy will be stopped. When you look at the run rate now of the budget performance, in the revenue performance in the last 2 months, in the months of August and September, you will see a run rate of over 1.5 trillion naira. If we sustain this rate, the current run rate of over 1.5 trillion naira, next year's budgeted revenue is 8.3 trillion naira. So at least the current run rate, if we keep this run rate into 2024, we will make the 18.3 trillion naira. So I don't know, what kind of analysis people are doing, but I expect that there be more rigor in the analysis.
So revenue is a major, and one will appreciate also that there seems to be a bit of a balance in the comparison between the revenue and the capital expenditure as projected, which a lot of people will say, oh, kudos. There seems to be a lot of disparity over the recurrent usually overshooting the capital expenditure, which tells how much we can do other than paying salaries. But now there is a huge one there. But there are those who say asset sale. There are a lot of Nigerian assets that are lying fallow without use, and they're just wasting away. Perhaps asset sale could be one way to generate revenue for this country. Was that also considered? Is that an option, Mr. Akabueze?
Oh, yes, of course it is. As you will recall, the government recently restructured the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, MOFI, which is in charge with, basically, documenting, reviewing, evaluating all of these, government assets and coming up with a strategy. There's a new board put in place there, coming up with strategies to see how we can optimize the yield of those assets. Of course, the Bureau for Public Enterprise is also forging ahead with its privatization agenda. In the revenue framework for 2024 includes 298 billion naira projected to come from privatization. The thing about, asset sales are great, but when you're talking about an annual budget, in an annual budget cycle, asset sales don't happen. It's not a flick of a switch. These transactions take time to structure. The transactions take time to negotiate.
I mean, we must perhaps have our eyes on major assets that will be substantial, that will help to accelerate and cushion, of course, get some inflow that will help to trigger the economy to move forward. What kind of assets are we looking at here? The low-hanging fruit, the quick ones, the primary ones that you're looking at?
Well, in my reckoning, the corporate assets will be the quickest to sell, which is basically to be able to structure them. And one of the biggest ones in that respect will be NNPC. And the NNPC itself has already indicated that it's working on a program to go public, to do an IPO. This is how you do an asset sale. So that is something that is already, in the works.
What other asset are we looking at? 2, 3, 4 others?
Sure, I think it's premature to, talk about, to give you a list.
Because I'm wondering that those who have criticized government for not being able to handle, not being able to handle some of the refineries.
Because it's in the public domain already.
I was making reference to the refineries. Those who believe that maybe government has not been able to adequately handle the running of some of these assets. And there are possibilities that maybe when they get into private hands, more money for government, then it will be better run. Is this also an option, the refineries?
The immediate past administration made a decision not to sell the refineries in the state in which they were, but to, rehabilitate them. And that rehabilitation effort is ongoing. The current administration is looking at it. As far as I know, a decision hasn't been made, what to do, post the rehabilitation. And so NNPC has given an indication that the Port Harcourt refinery will soon come on stream. Again, these are all the things that are under consideration, evaluating. Remember, people are shouting now, sell the refineries, sell the refineries. Some years ago, President Obasanjo sold the refineries. People were shouting, he shouldn't have sold the refineries. So let's not sound like this is a matter on which there's unanimity of opinion across the board by Nigerians. So you'll expect a new administration to settle down, evaluate all the options, gauge, take into reckoning opinion, and also actually even determine right timing for sale of the refineries, if indeed money is committed to their rehabilitation. Does it make better sense to wait till they get back into production before you sell, or do you sell in the middle of a rehabilitation process with ongoing contracts of rehabilitation?
Let me perhaps spend a few minutes before we wrap up this conversation on areas that give some Nigerians concern. And this perhaps have been some yearly concerns from Nigerians, as well as some capital expenditures, the ones that are meant, the items to service some top government officials. And I'd like you to probably respond to some of the questions, for example. I guess you have a copy of the budget in front of you, or you are aware or very familiar with some of this budget. For example, the one that had raised the most eyebrow is perhaps the residence of the vice president. And Mr. Peter Obi, for example, he had tweeted and made his views known that why
sure, let me help us, because the residence of the vice president is not in this budget. That's in the statutory budget of the FCT, for which I have no responsibility.
Great. Well, I mean, it's still captured in the budget, isn't it?
I said that is captured, the construction of the residence is captured in the budget of the FCT, the Federal Capital Territory, which is not this budget. That's not in this budget that we are discussing.
Okay, so you cannot speak to those, right?
The FCT is like a state government. They prepare their own budgets just like states do.
I totally understand. So you may not be able to speak in that respect. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. So now let me take you to other areas. For example, what it will cost for foreign trips and local trips. There are, in the presidential villa headquarters, for example, about 6.484 billion naira was provided for villa headquarters, international and local travels. In the office of the vice president, about 1.847 billion on international and local travels. I mean, there are those who are asking the questions, why are we, it's an austere moment in our country. Why are we spending so much money on travels?
Well, I believe that it is the view of the current administration that the country is at a point where it needs to engage with with external parties and countries, and what some people call shuttle diplomacy. So you may agree or disagree with that, and that's fine. That's why the budget is now with the National Assembly, the public hearings, and the National Assembly will listen to those views, and at the end of the day will determine whether they agree with the people on the executive side who feel that such expenditures are needful at this point in time to get the country to where they desire to take it.
Mr. Akabueze, I mean, without having to trouble you tonight, because I know your earlier plan was to quietly rest in your home without having to be drummed by the jugular in some of these questions. But I mean, I worry, and I'm hoping that my viewers tonight might be able to gain an advantage. If you say FCT, yes, that's their budget, but it's part of the document, and FCT is seen as though it's a ministry, although Mr. Wike is trying as much as possible to bring some level of independence into the FCT, but it's still part of what the federal government and the National Assembly is sitting on.
No. I think we need to get that clear. The FCT is not a ministry. There is a ministry of FCT, okay, which is different from the FCT as which has the status, of a state. I mean, in recent prudence regarding the election, I think, so that. So they are required, there is a grant to the FCT, which is included in the budget of the federal government. But the FCT then has its own, share of statutory, of revenues. And it also has its own independently generated revenues. And it therefore presents a budget independent of this budget to the National Assembly. Because the FCT, unlike the states that have houses of assembly, the FCT has no house of assembly. So the National Assembly plays the legislative role for the FCT. So I am not involved in preparing the budget, the FCT budget, and so I cannot comment about that.
So like Pilate in the Bible, you wash your hands clean of that. And perhaps my final question to you tonight will be, those who are saying this budget does not reflect the sufferings of the Nigerian people. There are those who believe that much of purchases of vehicles in billions of naira, where are the purchases of the vehicle of last budget, of the upper budget? Do we change vehicles every other time? Can you tell us whether or not Nigerians should go to bed tonight thinking that this government is just for the big boys and the big people in government and not thinking about the average person whom the government officials are supposed to be serving, Mr. Akabueze?
Well, again, Sheung, as I said, the budget is a public document. At the end of the day, it's the budget for the people of Nigeria, for the federal government of Nigeria. And so if that's how people feel, they're entitled to reflect that feeling to the legislators in the process of this. But to say that the budget doesn't cater to the common man, I think will be wrong. You need to look at the big numbers in this budget. What are the big numbers in this budget? You have, defense and security. We all need this. That's 3.25, trillion naira, 12% of the total budgeted expenditure. After that, the next expenditure is education. And folks like you on this platform have in the past said the public education has now been abandoned to the poor. So if the public education has now been abandoned to the poor and the guys are no longer patronizing public education, and we're spending 2.3 trillion naira on public education, how do you turn around and say the budget doesn't address the poor? The budget has there nearly 1.5 trillion naira for health. Again, on this platform, you've said the rich guys no longer go to public hospitals. So if there's that much money being spent on public health care, and you say it's the poor only that patronize those hospitals, then how do you say the budget doesn't address their issues?
Maybe it needs to reflect more. Nigerians want more attention to the larger population than the few who are in power, who are supposed to be servants of the people.
That's a fair comment. Everybody wants more. And frankly, I'm always first to acknowledge that the budget of the federal government of Nigeria is way too small relative to our needs and our requirements. But it's now more or less a case of cutting our coat according to our cloth rather than our size. And the reason the budget, I always want to bring us back to that point. The reason this budget is this small is because our public revenues are also too small. So we all need to, keep the focus on that.
Yeah, we will not lose the focus. And tonight, thank you so much for allowing us to pry into your private place and get some of these out to the Nigerian people. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Ben Akabueze, who is the Director General of the Budget Office. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thank you, Shane. My pleasure.
I appreciate it. We'll take a break, everyone. But when we come back, we're not done with the program. We will be delving into the internal affairs of the NNPP. Where is Mr. Kwankwaso, who is perceived as the leader of the party? There are those who are now dissociating. In fact, there is a document right here which says that they dissociate with some people who are loyal to Mr. Kwankwaso. What are the issues? We'll be hearing about that tonight on the program. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's get into the internal affairs of the NNPP, the New Nigeria's People's Party. Well, the crisis rocking that party is taking a rather new dimension, as now we've seen a group dissociating themselves from the Kano protest and the agitation against the judgment of the Court of Appeal. Now, this group been led by a faction of the leadership of the party, led by Mr. Agbo Major, urging security agencies to target the group loyal to the presidential candidate of the party in the last election, Mr. Obiu Kwankwaso. And there's been a protest to the different parts of the state and even at the FCT in Abuja. Let me allow you to listen to one of the protesters in Abuja, Ladipo Johnson, who led the protest and a man loyal to Mr. Kwankwaso. So take a listen to him.
It's common knowledge that in 2023, with a few months to the election, the Kwankwaso political movement and the national movement, TNM, joined the New Nigeria People's Party, a relatively unknown party, without strong structures whatsoever, and were able to win Kano State governorship election, resoundingly in a free and fair election, as they did in 2019 on the platform of the PDP. Sadly, the tribunal and the appeal courts have both recently obtained the overwhelming victory in two separate contentious judgments, which many legal luminaries have described as strange to the laws of the land, ignoring substantial justice, and in effect, snatching from the NNPP and the good people of Kano State a mandate freely given to their candidate, Engineer Abba Kabir Yusuf. As Almighty God will have it, the CTC of the appeal court judgment is at variance with the judgment read by the three-man panel of the courts, clearly showing that the judgment was in our favor.
So then, there you have it. That's Ladipo Johnson, loyal to Robbie Kwankwan. So, but there was a press conference which held on Monday here in Abuja. There is a document. And the end of the document, this is where I'm very much interested now. There are 6 persons who signed this. In that document, signed by Agbo Major, Tag 2 National Chairman, the National Secretary, National Vice Chairman, BOT Chairman, BOT Secretary, BOT Treasurer, and all of them dissociating themselves from Mr. Robbie Kwankwan. So tonight, I have Mr. Agbo Major. I'm not sure I'm able to refer to you as the National Chairman of your party because there are a lot of contention on it. Thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sheon. Good evening, viewers.
You refer to yourself as the national chairman.
Not that I do. That's the position of the party assistant.
Because the Robbie Kwankwan, so they've said they've suspended you from the party.
Well,
and you and some of your colleagues.
They are not members of our party. You heard him clearly now. He said they joined us last year for the purpose of the election. After the election, they joined us on the strength of an instrument, an MOU, which gave them the opportunity to run for various elected positions for the 2023 general election. In that MOU, it's explicitly stated that at the end of the election, they could go their way. Or rather, we come back again, to redesign that marriage and see if we would be able to continue or not. But when we saw the activities, we discovered that there's no way the marriage was going to continue. And so we had to ask them to go. And that's the situation now.
So you are referring to them, not Robbie Kwankwan. So Robbie Kwankwan, as a presidential candidate of the NNPP, is a member, isn't it?
No, he's not. He has been expelled from the party. The likes of Ladipo Johnson.
Who expelled him? Who expelled Kwankwan?
The BOT made a recommendation as constitutionally permitted, and then the National Convention okayed it on the 29th of August.
That was your presidential candidate?
Yeah.
How would you suspend your presidential candidate? I mean, there is a belief out there on the street that the party belonged to Kwankwan.
No, that's not correct.
That Kwankwan is NNPP is Kwankwan.
He joined us in March 2023. March 2022. He joined us in March 2022 after we had series of meetings and consultations. We ended these discussions in the country home of the founder of the party, in Umuawulu, a suburb of Oka in Anambra State, Dr. Boniface Okechukwu Anebunam. The pictures are there. That was where we agreed to firm up a relationship.
Dr. Anebunam is even not in the picture of this whole crisis right now.
Well,
because we have not heard his position whether he is of Kwankwan or he is Agbo Major.
Well, the truth is that he stands for what is right for the party. So his position is clear. As the founder of the party, a life member of the party, and on whose shoulder rests the responsibility of ensuring that the party is stable, his position is very clear. Whatever would make the party make progress. And the only way the party can make progress, which he has done, is to key into the leadership, that is the NWC that I lead. And that is why he has, as a father, you don't expect him to come out every minute to say anything. But his position is very clear on all of this.
They suspended you and some of your colleagues.
They never suspended.
You suspended. You went to Lagos and you did a meeting and you said you suspended them.
We suspended them. We gave them an opportunity to appear before a committee. They didn't come and they were expelled.
Why would you say you suspend your presidential candidate? He was fit enough to be a presidential candidate, which you used.
Yeah.
Afterwards, you don't think that is fit enough again?
It's not that he was presidential candidate. Does not mean that he's over and above the constitution of the party. If you do things that are not in the interest, even the... In fact, the only person that cannot be suspended from the party, even for 1 minute, by the virtue of the provisions of our constitution, is the founder of the party. He is a life member of the board of the party. The implication is that you can't take him out or deny him membership even for 1 second. He's the only one that the Constitution clearly states can never be suspended.
Why? What is the grievance against Kwankwaso?
Well, in fact, if we have to start talking about it, it will take us the next 5 hours because we have seen things that we never expected. You know, we went into this marriage in good faith when they came to us. After they had tried about 3, 4 other political parties, the PRP, the Accord Party, the leaders of these parties are my friends, and I knew where the discussions with them started and how it collapsed. It was because of this drive and this zeal to come and occupy where you have not sown. You know, the discussions had to collapse. And at a point, they came to us and they found a man who is very reasonable, a man who would always give you a chance, a man who would always deal with you in good faith and so on and so forth. And we gave them a chance.
It's not because you are making demands of them because they won in Kano. Is that another fact of the matter, is it?
That what?
That you are making demands because they won the Kano governorship. Is that a fact of the matter?
That is not the issue. Did
you make demands or not?
The crisis...
Did you make demands or not?
Not at all. Not at all. What kind of demands? Nothing.
In the MOU that you signed and the agreement subsequently after Kano, Kano became a maker of some sort, and that they said on their own side that they disallowed you. They denied you those kind of access.
That's not correct. These people are blackmailers. And you see, as wounded people who were not able to get what they wanted to get through the back door, they would go out there to say whatever they want to say. Get? Well, the whole idea was, okay, this man is a good man, you know, he's somebody who listens and so on and so forth, so let us dominate him and then take over the party. That was what they wanted. But they found in us, you know, the commitment to ensure that that never happened.
Well, let me take you to...
And so they would go the extra mile to try to blackmail,
Is it in the interest of your party? Because you are obviously denying members of your party fighting for the interest of the NNPP in Kano.
It's one thing to fight. It's another thing for the right people to spearhead the fight. It's not for expelled members of our party to spearhead this fight. That's one angle. The second angle is that, you know, there are more decent ways of doing this fight. Not by inciting people like they are trying to do in Kano. Not by going to embassies like they did here. Not by calling people names. This matter is still alive in court. There's still another one more window, which is the Supreme Court. So why are we inciting the public against our democracy? Why would someone like Ladipo Johnson, you know, the likes of Ladipo Johnson, Abba Kawali, who are not members of our party as it stands now, why would they be the ones doing that? So, Shaun, nobody is against the protest against what has happened in Kano. But what we are saying is the right people should be the ones protesting, not non-members of the party. They are members of Kwankwasia. And the governor is, of course, the governor, I understand, is also a member of Kwankwasia, but he's an NNPP governor. So what we are saying is the truth and the right thing to do is that the proper people who lead the party should be the ones spearheading this protest.
One of the arguments in court is the membership of the governor of Kano State, which is a major issue before the court, and is being, which formed the premise upon which the Court of Appeal gave his judgment, and that's going to be appealed in the Supreme Court. I mean, what is your position as a leader of the party?
You see, it's unfortunate that we have to start discussing a matter that is still alive in court. But we'll try to look at it maybe from the peripheral level. Ordinarily, our attitudes towards this has always been that it borders on the internal workings of the party. We know where the problems are coming from. In this text, you would see clearly where we accused the then presidential candidate of being high-handed, and that his high-handedness denied them the opportunity of ensuring that the Kwankwasia movement keyed in properly into the party. It's an internal affair of the party. That's number one. Number two, this same document also clearly exposed the inadequacies and inefficiency of the then National Working Committee. There were certain things that probably they needed to have done, they never did. And these are the things that have created these openings. And that's why we are saying, since the rule of law is what drives the beauty of democracy, the matter is still alive in court. We don't need all of this. Our party is not a party for charlatans.
You have a major grouse about Kano. And what would that be? Are you in support of Abba Yusuf or not?
He was elected on the platform of the NNPP. So I won't be here to say I won't support or I won't do this, I won't do that.
But what is your grouse?
The matter is in court. Let Let's wait for the
So
court.
you do not want any street protests or any agitation?
There's no need for it. There's no need for it. What's the need for all of that? We saw them on TV making all sorts of names, calling people names and all of that, denigrating our judiciary. Is that the right thing to do? This is democracy, for God's sake. And the only institution that directs and positions democracy properly and protects it is the judiciary. So when you bring the judiciary on its knees, what are you achieving? As a Democrat, it's not. So what we are saying is we have issues with this, but the truth about it and what we expect is that we have a more civilized way of lodging this protest. And the way to do it is to allow the courts to finish what they should do. We have implicit confidence in the ability of the courts to do what is right. And so we expect that by the time the rule of law takes its course and then the matter in court, which is at least there's still another opportunity, the Supreme Court and all of that, by the time it's over, we can now begin to analyze what really happened, how did it happen. But I can tell you, Sheun, that a greater chunk of the problem came from the inadequacies of the leadership of the party then, as well as the leader of the Kwankwasia group who didn't allow them to do what was right.
What is the way forward, 20 seconds?
Well, we need to be law-abiding. We urge the good people of Kano to be law-abiding. Since there's still one more window, we believe that the Supreme Court will do what it needs to do. And so we are not party to what they are doing. Our party stands for peace, we stand for justice. Right. And so we expect that peace should be allowed to prevail until the Supreme Court finishes with this matter.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rabiu Kwankwaso. Yeah, that is the name of the man there, the presidential candidate of the NNPP. And Mr. Agbomeyo, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.
For I'm running away from calling you the national chairman.
You should have done that.
Until your
That's
party,
the right thing to do.
You guys need to resolve your crisis. I mean,
there's no crisis in our party. There's no crisis in our party.
Well,
because you are not privy to the provisions of our constitution.
According to
all
you,
that we have done are clearly in line with the provisions of our constitution.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. But that's our time tonight. I appreciate everyone. I'm sure Akimale. Bye-bye.